Hello, welcome back. Another episode of the Non-Essential Workers Podcast, a left-wing podcast on media, politics, and so much more. Glad to have you with us. I'm
so
Alex.
much less.
So much less.
I'm Jason.
And it's me, Aiden, the Svelte Count.
Your boy.
Svelte Count.
I'm working
I
on
like
my
that.
tagline.
I like it. All right, this is all staying in. So yeah, this is my week to blast articles across with broadside cannons. And I think I'll start with my revisionist history segment.
You love to revise history.
Yeah. I'm a revisionist historian. From, which one is this? Wall Street Journal, who I think has several this time.
Oh, God.
The Russia-Ukraine conflict lies in the bones of an 11th century prince.
Huh? What's really going on about?
Oh, you want a little more detail? I got a
Is
brief
history
subhead.
really always about big men? Come on.
Yaroslav the Wise's legacy is contested by Ukraine and Russia. A search for his remains is underway.
All right, I've come around. Yaroslav's a great name.
Yeah, that's a great name. Oh, I didn't know
He's basically
that.
just admitting he's a Slav. You're a Slav. You're a Slav.
Yeah, it's not an insult. It's an ethnic group.
So, I mean, this is very informative. I didn't realize that the annexation of Crimea wasn't about maintaining port supremacy and a buffer with NATO against NATO. It was about bones of Yaroslav.
This is like that episode of Last Kingdom where, like, we need the holy relic toe of the Saint Lucia bitch tits from England. Like, God, man, history's dumb.
Well, yes, and I say that as a historian, but still, I think Aiden jumped on the thing that I thought was more hilarious, which is that, like, this is why Putin's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, not real.
He needs Yaroslav the Wise's bones. He's on like a D&D quest. He needs to find like an ancient crypt that has relics. You know, like, are they going to raise him as a lich? And then he's like, "I will tell you who the true Russians are."
This is the last component for my phylactery.
Yeah. It was especially strange that this showed up in the Wall Street Journal because I was like, usually they would either push some bizarre fiscal hawk shit or they'd be pushing like right-wing international politics. This is like a bizarre side
But see, here's the secret. Where is the right-wing politics in the story? Because it's somewhere in there. It's got to be. We just have to find it. We have to do our own excavation of this historical site to figure it out.
Yeah. Get the pickaxes out, boys.
Hop in the mystery machine. Yeah, I don't disagree at all. Like with the Wall Street Journal, there has to be some kind of like pro-American imperialism angle to this.
Let's assume that there's a right-wing message in this title because there probably is.
There can't not be.
My guess would be that they're a pro-Ukrainian position because they're anti-Putin because that's the one we want to fight.
Yeah.
And then the Ukrainian position would be if we find the bones in Ukraine, then that's like a true like we're now nationally sovereign. You know, like if we find this guy's bones, and he probably was in Ukraine because the Kievan Rus predated the Muscovite Rus historically, and this time period would line up with the Kievan Rus. They basically already know the answer. Like it probably is in Ukraine, right?
But what do the bones prove again?
I don't think they prove anything, but according to them, maybe it proves like who's the real Slavs, or like who's the true inheritors of Russia.
Does that have to do with anything?
All right, I'm gonna give you a very brief historical background, just so that anyone who doesn't know this. So there's two primary ethnic groups in medieval history that both led to the creation of the modern Slavic, state of Russia. The Kievan Rus developed first in what is now Ukraine and southern Russia, and later the Muscovite Rus developed in what is now Moscow and northern Russia, and maybe a little bit of Finland. And basically, the Kievan Rus were a slightly different ethnic group, and the Muscovite Rus were another ethnic group that was like influenced by Viking blood and such. And eventually, the Kievan Rus declined, and the Muscovite Rus rose. So Russia became very large and powerful, and Ukraine kind of fell into obscurity. And so, with that in mind, it's kind of like saying we're the true OG Slavs. We came before you in history, therefore somehow that like means something now. Whereas all it really indicates is like empires and kingdoms rise and fall and decline and cycle over and over again. So like it's a selective reading of history, right? That would it kind of it's like saying like Israel deserves to exist because the Jews existed there 2,000 years ago, or like Britons for the Britons because we were here before the Muslims. It's like it's one of these conservative appeals to history.
I still don't understand. No one deserves to exist or not exist.
Well, right.
The states that exist currently do.
I mean,
like, there's no one is arguing for. Oh, well, we gotta get rid of we gotta genocide all of Russia. We gotta genocide all like. That's not happening. It's just negotiating with the people who currently exist. So I can't even get off square one with this story.
I think my biggest problem with it is that if the bone should belong to anyone, shouldn't it be Mongolia? Since they conquered both Muscovy and Kiev.
They killed him fair and square.
Yeah.
I would agree, except I think this guy died 2 centuries before they got there. So basically, they would only get it if they got to like loot his tomb at the time. I think they missed their window.
All right, I'm taking the revanchist, I guess, position on this one.
Yeah. The Mongolians taken enough.
I'm advocating for Mongolian reparations from Russia
with love.
Yeah,
it's a very funny headline. It's nonsensical, but it evokes a sense of romanticism that I appreciate, and it clearly just feels like either one, it is a
homo romanticism.
Does it, Jason?
I'm just ripping.
Yeah, I thought
this story connects with me less than zero, so I'm just
saying words. Gotcha.
I'm just being mean.
Yeah. Either this is just like a very niche interest of a certain historian that has connections with Wall Street Journal staff, or it's as you tried to tie together the thread.
Maybe he couldn't get this garbage published in his like history journal.
No, they can.
Yeah,
don't worry.
Don't fret.
Yeah, well, I think there's a little evidence that this might be leaning towards a more broad decision making at the Wall Street Journal, because Wall Street Journal article number 2, you tell me whether this is more or less insane. Scotland moves to pardon thousands executed as witches 400 years later. And subhead, decades after women tried in Salem, Mass. Were exonerated, campaigners in Scotland are calling for a reckoning with their country's violent past.
What? Salem, Mass. What's Salem, Mass. to do with Scotland?
Witches. That's it. They're both witches. I don't know what else the connection.
No. I mean, it seems like they're saying, there's some like they read some recent thing about how like Salem witch trials are bad. Like, well, we did the same thing, so we should feel bad about it. To me, this is fodder for right wingers to be like, they're trying to destroy our culture, our witch burning, insane, evil culture. That's what it reeks of to me. Where it's some like well-intentioned Scottish progressive person like, and we need to let the witches' corpses feel better too. And yeah. I don't know. It's just like one of those cultural non-issues that gets bubbled up into like, they're taking our values and our women.
Yeah, it reminded me of the articles that were like, we need to take down the statues of Robert E. Lee.
Yeah,
like we need to
400 years later.
Well after it would matter, though. It's still kind of a moral victory, right? And so I imagine that if it's a right-wing paper writing an article on it, it's like, how dare they take down our witch burning people? I don't know.
I think it's even less like meaningful, because white supremacy still is alive and well in America, and those are monuments towards how much cultural weight it still has. Whereas this is just like, no one. I mean, I don't want to be mean to our Wiccan listeners, but no one cares about.
I'll do it if you won't.
Okay. So my anti-Wiccan interpreter will step in now.
Man, everything's just lining up perfectly. I was just talking with Alex the other day about Wiccans, and I've been playing recently Horizon Zero Dawn, which I got in the Steam sale for very cheap. And the story is great, but the story is about this girl who's like the reincarnation of a fucking scientist chick who saved the world, who is raised in 1,000 years later by all these tribal dipshits who have all these religious beliefs around machines and mountains. And she's just like had it up to here with all these dumbass losers being like, "You're anointed, you're cursed, you're the seeker," like all this religious gobbledygook. And she's like, "No, it's technology, you fucks." And so I mean, I don't understand, like, Why should we care about the pardoning of dead people who no one knows that don't really matter? It's not a moral victory. It's not a victory at all. It's a nothing.
Well,
it's a giant fat nothing burger.
Before we go off on Wiccans, I don't think that these women were actually Wiccans. I think they
of course not. They were just like
they're just persecuted people.
That rumors were spread about.
Yeah, I don't. It has nothing to do with the actual religion.
Anyone who's not aware of what the actual Salem witch trials is like, it's very easy to investigate. Just like young women got into weird shit. Some of them thought they were doing magic, but most of them were just like
it would be like Mary
disliked.
Mary farted in church. It must have been a black goat cursed her, and it's just like
turned me into a newt. I mean,
this philanderer was too excited by a woman who didn't care about
him.
Yeah, but this is what I mean about a non-issue bubbling up instead of real issues. Like, because we only have a limited amount of bandwidth to deal with stuff.
Yeah,
and so for every story that's chosen to be covered, some other story did not get that place. So for every time the Wall Street Journal covers like witches and shit, they're not covering other important shit. Now, obviously, they cover that shit terribly because they're evil. But the point is,
I was going to say this is less offensive to
right here. It's actually like good white noise. But the point is, they're trying to build this up as some like boogeyman that's look how Scotland, they didn't do Brexit. They're trying to be cool and hip and progressive, and like they're talking about witches and shit. This is not an issue.
I don't think the witches care. That's my bigger problem with this, is it's a completely empty, meaningless thing to do. Like, Wall Street Journal is empty and meaningless to cover it, but I also think that the people pushing this is empty and meaningless. Like, the girls are still murdered. Like, you can't undo this. Like, I mean, this is about as meaningful as when they're like, okay, the guess we are going to say the Jews didn't kill Christ after 2 millennia.
Right, and also, like,
anti-Semitic pogroms and persecution.
People knew killing accusing these women of being witches was wrong in the first place. Didn't stop them.
Yeah, I mean, presumably it might not have just been like totally blackpilled, but yeah, I don't know. I don't understand. Like, I guess it's better to have them exonerated than not. But like, are they implying that for 400 years Scotland was like that was righteous?
They're still on the records. They're still on the books.
Like they're on the books, like correctly executed.
Yeah, you go to your ancestry.com and it's like my great grandma was accused of being a witch and burned at the stake.
They sent her to Azkaban? Like, what are they saying? Like, it was organized? Like, yeah, like, are they implying that there's like a witching execution station run by like a cop? It's just, it's like this is so incompatible with modernity that it's almost hilarious that they felt they needed to do.
Because it's near medieval.
But it's like if you dig through U.S. like blue laws or whatever the fuck they are, and all the weird shit in the margins of law in the U.S., you find all sorts of stuff like you can't feed a donkey an onion at midnight. It's like, okay, like, do you need to repeal that? Like, does anyone care? No one's going to enforce that. It's not a real thing. Like, these are just bizarre holdovers from like when we were basically feudal. And, like,
but the article is basically saying, bitch ass Scotland celebrating the repeal of a shit law that no one cared about, that no one enforced anyway.
Yeah,
they're trying. The people in Scotland are being like, we're doing something, even though we're not. And the critics are saying, you're not doing anything, and in fact, you're taking away from what made us good.
Yeah.
So it's nothing all around. It's like it's the typical fodder that like the quote left and the quote right get to feed on that doesn't change a goddamn thing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish that I could believe that that the author of this piece was looking at this from our perspective, but it's regarding the publication it's in, I just can't believe that. I have to agree that it's like someone who went on Reddit and saw the like witches versus the patriarchy subreddit and decided that this is
unless the families are literally getting reparations. Like, this is a non-story.
There's no way they are. No, that's not possible.
It's just funny because I can't even tell from the headline and what I know about the Wall Street Journal whether they're for or against this event.
Also, what families? All these girls were like 16. They probably didn't have kids when they got fucking murdered.
No, it was probably like the descendants of their 8 sisters or whatever.
Their 8 brothers, yeah.
Yeah, because everyone had huge families. So. Or like their clan. I mean, it's Scotland, so like, who knows? Like, someone's tartan got in a tiff over this, and they fixed it.
It's also mildly amusing that this is symbolic of Scotland reckoning with their violent past.
Yeah,
as if like those isles aren't rife for like a millennia.
Yeah,
extreme bloodshed, conquest, defensive wars. But I guess unlike those, this was an immoral.
Yeah, the irony is today Scotland's like the most left-wing part of the great
by far
Great Britain.
Yeah.
And yet their history is horrible. Like, Scottish history is filled with so many like betrayals and murders and like horrific crimes against their own moral codes. I don't know. I'd feel pretty rough too if I was trying to excuse my own history in Scotland.
Maybe they're just coping. Maybe this is them going through therapy.
I guess what I'm saying is, after you finish pardoning the witches, you should also leave the UK. That would be my push.
They can't really.
They could. They voted on it many times. They keep losing by like 1%. But
I mean, by they can't.
Yeah,
they're not old enough. They're too old.
Let's take a very brief break from the Wall Street Journal to move to an even more important historical revisionism from the New York Post. Here's what Steve Jobs might have been worth with Apple valued at $3 trillion.
Oh my god! Now we're giving credit to billionaires who are dead. What the fuck? What's happening?
But think about how rich he could have been.
I need to know how much this corpse is worth.
He's a corpse.
St. Yaroslav Jobs' corpse would have been worth the following. The Apple-Microsoft war is really about Steve Jobs' corpse.
I mean, every day that passes, I agree more with Agent Smith. That humanity is a virus. We are a plague across the land, and we give ourselves plagues of the brain. Oh my god.
I mean, the New York Post is definitely a plague.
Yeah. That much I'm with you on.
I wish that I almost wish that this had just been replaced with other normal, like, openly, we should be killing more black people articles.
Steve Jobs would be worth more than the amount of cancerous cells in his colon. Like, come on.
Probably. But I mean, this is real. Like, this is an article headline, which not only is it glorifying wealth, not only is it glorifying an open sociopath who tortured and abused his workers, it's retconning, like, we want to imagine an alternative history in which someone was even richer than our current kleptocracy. Like, we're not wealth unequal enough for
how
them.
How is Tim Cook not getting offended by this? Maybe if Steve Jobs was still alive, he'd be running the company into the ground.
Yeah,
maybe
quite
Tim
possibly.
Cook should get the credit for Apple being worth $3 trillion.
And there's a lot of people on the inside who would agree, because Steve Jobs was a complete sociopath and made people absolutely insane at that company. So yeah, it would not be surprising if it's worth much more because he's not in charge, as you say. But what if he was, though?
Yeah, this article could huff my shorts.
I take it you do not want to know how much he would be worth.
I mean, my guess is they're going to say he'd be the richest. And so he'd be just above like Bezos and Musk. He'd be worth like 200 billion or whatever. 500 billion. I don't know. Who gives a shit?
But here's the thing. I briefly read this because I thought it was funny. The article actually gets even dumber. They go, all right, it actually wouldn't be that much because he sold all of his stock. But what if he hadn't sold his stock?
What if he hadn't done the thing
they had to do an aside within the aside?
And what if he signed a giant deal with the aliens who came in 2025?
Yeah. It's like, what if he invested in Bitcoin? I'm like, what does it matter? What if he? Not only is he dead, he was already not owning. That is so
what
stupid.
If he bought Bitcoin and early on and turned it into Apple Coin? And Bitcoins were official Apple products. Come on.
The article literally started turning into like the conversation between three dead presidents.
Yeah, the Friedman story.
It's literally what it started doing.
This author should have just written an article.
LBJ and Clinton cried and jerked off as listening to Biden's speech.
How much money would I have if I invented the cure for death?
Premise. What if I cured cancer for profit?
Well,
yeah.
Speaking of jerking off to Joe Biden's speech.
Right,
let's briefly return to Wall Street Journal again with their really prescient article.
So hang on, our reprieve for Wall Street Journal was this garbage, and we're right back.
Yep, deal with it.
Strap in, folks. We're in for a rough ride.
Like a torture test, a stress test.
They get better later on as far as like our ability
You're
to.
You're raising the incline on the.
I'm setting you on max jog. Wall Street Journal, are you with Joe Biden or Jefferson Davis?
Fuck it, Jefferson Davis. I don't give a shit.
So, when I first read this article headline, I was like, wait a minute, is the Wall Street Journal pro-Biden? Because I don't think even they're pro-Jefferson Davis.
Yes, because Biden's a conservative.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, this is almost like a New York... It was almost like a New York Times article, right? Like a pro-conservative Democrat article. Nope. Subhead, the president's speech on voting rights is divorced from reality.
Oh my god.
So are they trying to say that Jefferson Davis was more progressive than Joe Biden?
No, his take on voting rights was connected with reality.
Well, it's better to be extremely racist, but pragmatic.
If I'm being generous to them, and I don't even know why I would be, I think what they're saying is it's a false binary that Biden has set up.
Did Biden talk about Jefferson Davis?
I see.
Also, Jefferson Davis is another corpse. Why is it talk about it?
I think that Joe Biden gave a speech on the voting rights issue like a year too late, and he said, are you with me, folks? You gotta be pro voting rights, or else you're pro Jefferson Davis.
Is that why all the voting rights groups in Georgia
Yeah, it's a later article. It's a later article.
But I still do watch the news. I still know what happened.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that's
literally he thinks he's on are not on his side.
Well, fuck it. I guess I'll post that now if you want to talk about it. The next article I was going to do is I entered the revisionist present was from CNN, as you basically just alluded to. Georgia voting rights groups boycott Biden's Atlanta speech. Quote, "We don't need more photo ops. We need action." So I guess we could talk about these as a pair since I meant them as a pair. You with Jefferson Davis? You with Joe Biden? Or you with Georgia?
I'm really tired of the news trying to resurrect these people. Let the people who are dead be dead. Please stop bringing them into shit. They're gone. Their evil can't hurt us anymore.
Which people? Are you talking about like Jefferson Davis now?
Yeah, and Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Well, there definitely was a running theme of let's talk about long dead shit. But
this is not like an anti-history stance. I'm not saying you can't learn from things. I'm not saying it's not fun to examine history, but like Biden's counterfactual is not Jefferson Davis. It's the people who ran against him to run for office in real life in modern times.
Well, there's a reason he has to say Jefferson Davis, right? Because if he said anyone after the Civil War, it would have been Democrats restricting black people's rights.
Yeah, but who gives a shit? That's the party.
Instead of a secessionist, right? So it's just for optics, right? He has to use someone who's explicitly a secessionist in the CSA, the Confederate States of America, rather than referring to the explicit racism of the early Democratic Party following Reconstruction.
Yeah, but I don't think it actually matters that the Democratic Party post-Reconstruction were the racists. I don't think that matters.
I don't think it matters either, but there's definitely some people who could make hay out of it. So there's actually a certain rationality to pick.
Hay makes sense when you're 6 years old. You're like, wait, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican? Like,
yeah, I know.
It doesn't mean anything.
But like the average voter doesn't have much more info than that.
You know what? I actually don't think those arguments work on the average voter anymore. I remember like the 90s. That was the Republican like calling card. Yeah. It was like pretend they're the smart ones who have the right side of history on their side. But like that has so fallen on its face as the right has just turned to raw fascism. Like,
yeah.
Remember when Lincoln was a fascist? Like, no, like it's not gonna fly. It doesn't work. It's not an actual motivating like position for Republicans to take for elections. So once again, Biden should not be worrying about elections. He should be worrying about getting shit done.
That's what he says he's trying to do. So
I think he should worry about elections, but I don't think he's going to approach voting rights.
No, he's going to lose 2022. No, he's going to lose his majorities no matter fucking what. So the only thing that matters is like striking corrupt bargains in the Senate now. Just do the damage. Just do the thing.
He can't even get his own fucking party to do it. How's he going to strike a corrupt bargain with anyone else? Will we actually have a democratic process that is even remotely accurate and fair in this country? And I think Georgia is a battleground for that right now. And he says, right, like Biden would assert that his efforts to pass voting legislation that would reduce the filibuster and all this shit to like make sure that they protect voting rights is doing something. I mean, if it worked, I guess I would agree with him. I don't think it's going to work.
You know, and I think there's a separate issue where obviously I don't want Republicans to take control at any level in our government, from state, local to federal. But also it's just important that people feel empowered and like their vote matters. Like that's the premise of a democracy. So I think even that is just a separate value. That, I mean, and that makes it all the more tragic that, yes, Joe Biden will not get anything done. He is a do-nothing president, it seems. I mean, I know we're not that far into his presidency, but I think that's pretty clear, and no one is surprised to see that either, unfortunately.
He's only come through a half bit on student loans. He's got rid of some and delayed it for everyone else. That's the only accomplishment he has to his name. And that's ironically something that has directly affected me. It's just not enough.
I mean, but it's also tragic because that's like one of the few things he made an
ironclad promise on that he's not following through on.
Yeah, so even that, yeah. But yeah,
I don't think mine got reduced at all. So
mine did not.
You should vote Biden.
No, they all got delayed.
Off my shorts.
Mine actually literally started up again only since he took office. Anyway,
all student loans should be delayed till May. That's what I read.
This isn't really about student loans, and the bank's already charging you. So
I'm just talking about legislative accomplishments.
But the other half of this, right? Like, so you got one end, which is Wall Street Journal somehow finding a way to shit on Biden for actually doing something that is nominally good, which is to try to advocate for voting rights.
Yeah.
And then you have the other side, which is presumably more progressive voices in Georgia saying, like, we don't believe you're even doing it, which is probably right. Right. But the question is, do we want Biden at least pretending to do the right thing? I think that's what this all kind of hinges on. Like, is Biden's effort supposedly to get this passed genuine? And whether it's genuine or not, is it going to do anything?
I don't think it matters if it's genuine, because even if you cynically do the correct thing with action, that's all that matters.
Yeah, well, that's the second half of the question.
Matter if the actions follow up.
That's the second half of the question. I mean, you could argue whether it's genuine, but you could also argue whether it's going to be effective, and I think it's neither.
But I don't care if it's.
I think it's tactical and ineffective. Just because, again, he had a year that he's dragging his heels on this. He finally gets around to it with so little time left to actually address it before the 22 midterms, and it's like, now you want to fight the filibuster?
How about you say via executive order, due to the 14th, 15th, and 16th Amendments, no state shall have laws that impinge any voting rights. Like, and I'm existing an executive order privilege bonus super wombo combo. You can't do anything. Strike all local laws off the books that do any limiting. Like, it's not that complicated. Like, he has the authority to do it. It's the same thing as the Obama thing around, like, immigration. I mean, it's not identical because he doesn't have identical powers over elections as he does over our borders, but still pretty goddamn close.
Well, even if we don't know what powers he has, right? Because the presidents always are constantly expanding their domain.
Right, it's all made up. The points don't matter.
What he needs to do, right? Like, let's say you think he's going to be like the great labor progressive president he pretended for 5 minutes he was going to be. Well, you just start doing shit and see what sticks, right? You force the court to strike it down. You know, like start taking executive actions, and if they work, great. And if they get into legal conflict, you fight it legally. Like, you don't just sit there and go like, I can't do anything, or like, no, you just like see what you can get away with. That's what every other fucking modern president has done.
That's
do you think that Trump had
means?
Did Trump have the right to start like Twitter based legal changes to our system? No, but he did anyway. I mean, this is like everyone's fucking pushing the boundaries with the powers that they're given. So see what you can do. Like, giving a speech is fine. I don't even have a problem with giving a speech, but then issue an order, right? Like, do a thing and follow it up. But instead, all he's really doing, I mean, I think the context of this is he's like telling the Senate to get rid of the filibuster. It's like, well, sure, but you should have done that before you failed to pass your other thing. Like, that should have been the very first thing you did, and it should have been like February of last year. So it's way too late to get rid of the filibuster, because any of the energy that they had to like get their signature accomplishment through and therefore get rid of the filibuster to do that is already passed.
Yeah, exactly. The problem is the Democratic Party thinks it can just go about a normal agenda without making the structural changes necessary. Like, no, you need those big changes first. You can't get your Build Back Better bill passed or some like little tiny bill passed if you don't fundamentally kill things like the filibuster or pack the court. Like, you have to do the big thing. And I know those are scary for Democrats, but they're necessary.
Yeah.
And they won't ever do that, which is how you know they'll never get these things done, because they're not willing to make the actual systematic changes.
And
which is why people don't have faith in this system.
This is in the Wall Street Journal, which I remember in September, maybe October last year, the editorial board released an opinion piece on exactly the subject of voting rights or voting reform. And it was basically this. The key points were they expressed contempt at the idea that a universal right to access to mail-in ballots, to counting votes that come in slightly late, to forcing people who transparency over people who fund, I think, over $500 towards ads related to influencing voting. All those things were bad. That's an example of a bad voting rights bill. people being able to more easily understand how corporate interests, big money, influences elections, and having more reliable access to exercising their right to vote during a pandemic, no less. All those things are bad. So whatever you might think about individual articles, that's from the editorial board. They control what goes into their paper. The paper decides what comes in and comes out. As we have expressed many times, selection has meaning, and yeah, this is what they think as a conglomerate. And so,
well, yeah, because they're one of those corporate interests that benefits from fewer people voting. Like, it's actually pretty rational for them to publish it like that.
But it is, but
this story has transcended the actual source of the article, and we're really just like, we don't have confidence, and neither do the progressives, voting rights advocates in Georgia, that Biden will do what he said he would do. So it's all a giant fucking moot point. And Wall Street Journal's evil demonstrated for the nth time.
Well, if you don't trust the Wall Street Journal, surely the liberal paper, the New York Times, covering the same issue, will come to the defense of voting rights, right?
Nope.
New York Times.
They're going to have an even harsher take.
Left and center left both claim Stacey Abrams. Who's right?
What?
Now, is this
claim
a play?
Her?
Do they mean right as correct, or is
correct.
It a pun?
No, they mean correct.
Okay. Not smart enough for a pun.
So Stacey Abrams, noted voting rights campaigner in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
This article about the same exact topic about voting rights in Georgia is going after the left for trying to appropriate Stacey Abrams instead of the right for destroying voting rights.
Isn't she a sitting congresswoman? Like,
actually, I don't know. I'll look that up.
But like, once again, I don't understand what the fight is over. The fight's over voting rights, not who gets to claim credit for being ideologically more extreme. What is this garbage?
I think she lost her race.
She was a rep. Yeah. She's no longer a rep, but she was a rep.
All right, so now she's like a voting rights advocate in the private sector, or NGO or whatever. Who gives a shit? Like,
what is it? Like that meme with the guy that is it from Simpsons? I don't remember, but like they got the stick, like do something. They're trying to poke something. It's like, this matters not at all, and they're just trying to create conflict that doesn't really exist. The left is usually the left is atrophied and frail as hell, but also they're happy to get what they can get because they have such scraps. And also, what does left and center left even mean?
Well, yeah, I was gonna get to that. There's once again the New York Times trying to erase the actual left by saying that like AOC is the furthest left you can get, and Joe Biden's center left. Like that's what they're asserting, basically.
It makes my head hurt. I know that sometimes it's important to have spectrums to understand things, but
someone's got a spectrum.
At
the New York Times.
The center of a direction. I don't know, man. I'm spiraling.
West northwest.
Yeah.
Look, on a scale of 1 to 10, there's 1, 2, and 3. Which are you? That's what they're saying. There's nothing else. You can only have one of a few specific points on this enormous scale. Everything else doesn't exist. So, what is it? Is she right wing or slightly right wing? I mean, the reality is, Stacey Abrams doesn't actually support like core left wing or progressive causes like Medicare for All or Green New Deal or any of these things. She's just a voting rights advocate because she believes in democracy and she's trying to make sure black people vote instead of returning to Jim Crow. She's not like a leftist. She's just like a centrist who's broadly trying to fight for some good things there. So there is a correct answer to this, but it's also irrelevant because instead of even making any effort to say what we ought to support, right? Like the New York Times isn't saying like, okay, everyone should be a voting rights advocate. Everyone should be supporting fucking Green New Deal because climate's imploding and it's like the hottest year on record. Yeah, like
every year's the hottest year on record.
Every year's been the hottest year on record for like our entire lives. So like, yeah, there's very obvious evidence that any kind of scientifically minded or educated elite media should be able to point to go, here's the correct policy logically to take. Instead, it's like a Queenie article about who gets to claim this person.
Yeah, it's like
I don't care if they're a fascist, if they're advocating voting rights. Cool, do your thing.
They certainly wouldn't be a fascist if that's what they're doing. But
yeah, I somehow doubt she's a fascist.
I'm saying is, let's say you're like a Republican.
Yeah.
But you're like, I still believe in the sanctity of elections. Like, cool. Advocate for your voting rights. I don't care who claims you. I just care about outcomes. Why is it so hard for the news to understand?
Well, they don't care about you, is the point.
Everyone cares about outcomes.
It's less about, it feels like it's less about politics and political spectrum of values. It's more just like, yeah, as Alex said, trying to make a celebrity out of politicians.
You know, there has been a meta slander that has happened. The word politics has been vilified.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime there's like any infighting or people negotiating, oh, it's politics. Oh, it's there's people conniving and scheming. That's politics. We have intentionally bastardized the word politics to make it seem like a dirty, scary, odious thing that should not be engaged in. And that's intentional. That is an anti-democratic stance. It's to get us to stop voting, to stop caring.
That has been a conservative attack, regardless of which party happens to be the most arch-conservative at the moment, against democratic principles for as long as we've been a country.
But what I'm saying is that is also just seeped into popular culture.
Yeah, absolutely. But like it was like a Reagan talking point, like don't trust the politicians. You can only trust me, a lying actor.
Oh, why did Jeff get fired from the office? Inside politics.
Yeah. It was a Trump talking point, like I'm the businessman, not the politician. This has been, not only has it ingrained in our culture just sort of naturally, it's been artificially put into our culture by intentional manipulation by a political class trying to make it seem like they're less political than their opponents, which really just means they're liars.
Why would you try to politicize the values that we teach our children?
Right, exactly.
Why would you try to politicize the legitimate coercive authority of the state to enact policies? Yeah. Who could do such a thing? What are you, a monster?
Yeah. Which again, I mean, for anyone who's wondering, like why I literally tell you that we're left wing at the start of every one of our podcasts, because someone who tells you what their bias is being honest with you, whereas someone who says I'm not political, they're full of shit. Everyone's political. Everyone has stances. If they're not telling you what they are, then they're hiding them from you, and they're doing it anyway. So, as you say, political has become a dirty word, which is absurd because it's like, well, by what other process do we govern? Should we do that apolitically? Do we have someone who has like zero affect wander into a chamber and press buttons randomly? Like I don't understand. How would you govern without it being political?
Homer Simpson at the board of the nuclear code board.
Be brainless or achieve nirvana. Those are the two solutions.
Right. Well, I don't think we're going to get the Buddha to solve American government. So pretty much it just means brainless.
Dalai Lama, what a good guy.
Which means bad people get everything they want because no one's at the wheel.
Correct.
So yeah, if anyone says like, oh, politics is bad, it's like, okay, if you believe that, then also pay attention to where like business and corporate interests are bad. Because that's what takes complete control if there's no functional politics. And they don't care about you even a little bit. Whereas at least your representatives care enough to get reelected. So yeah, I mean,
to some degree,
they are mandated to care. Whereas corporations don't give a fuck if you like them or not. Most of the time, they'll replace you with a fucking
corporations will pay more money not to care.
Yeah.
They'll pay more money to deal with lawsuits than to actually fix their product. They'll pay more money to hide shit and kill competing products than to actually do good things. We know corporations are corrupt. So why would we trust them over people who are elected by a democracy? I do not have confidence we'll have. I don't think we really have democracy, but I don't think we'll even have like the veneer of democracy for much longer. And I mean like a century more tops.
Way to stand with Jefferson Davis.
I'm not saying we ought not to. We ought to, but we just not going to.
I'm fully aware.
The average public will be like, nah, fuck it. We're done. I'm tired of this experiment. It's bad. It's not working. It's not helping. Because it's been so co-opted and coerced.
Yeah, I mean, there has been such an effective, selective weaponization of like pick and choose acknowledgments of corporate influence in politics that has been effectively channeled into widespread support among I guess increasingly majority number of voters for authoritarianism by right-wing media. It's pretty depressing because it's doing such a fucking good job of making people believe, like buying into the very, very errant figments of acknowledgement of how corrupt our system is, and then reacting to that in the worst possible ways.
Yep. And this is not even, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, this is not new. This is literally throughout the history of American politics. You can look into the sloganeering.
No, that makes me feel worse. Because if it was new, we can at least course correct. But we know it's not. It's part of who we are as a
species.
To me, it makes
me feel better because we've accomplished plenty of good things despite this being true throughout almost our entire history. So it means you just got to fight through it. You got to fight through the bullshit just like we do every fucking week on this show.
But Alex, we're tired. We're all a bunch of single moms who are tired of the pandemic. We're tired. We're tired of democracy.
Does anyone care about single podcasters anymore?
You're genuinely tired of democracy.
So, speaking of tired of democracy, the New York Times is definitely going to course correct with their next article, the last of the revisionist present. To return to an old favorite. China's ban on sissy men is bound to backfire.
They have roused the ire of anime fans worldwide, I'm sure.
That is some good stuff.
All the femboys, all the cross-dressing characters in anime are about to be slapped from the internet.
Yeah, once again, the intersection of right-wing America interacting with right-wing China and being surprised.
Nani? Yeah, it's really baffling to me that the New York Times is the one to cover this. But sure, let's take this at face value. I mean, they're right. Like, the sissy man thing is an absurd thing for China to get upset about. Right,
if you're not an alpha Chad, you don't get born. Like, all right, But the funny thing is, once again, like we've talked about before, the New York Times is doing this on purpose. They are playing into the hand of making themselves look like the beta cucks compared to right-wing Americans. Like, they are designing the propaganda for the right wing as well.
They're signing, New York Times soy paper.
Right. They are. Yeah. They have lined up the ball on the tee for Trump to knock out of the park. Like, they're doing this on purpose. And of course, the author probably has like purple hair. Like this is all by design.
New York Times standing up for victimized minorities as long as they're not in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be like I'm just gonna take a vow of silence.
That's very helpful on a podcast.
I don't know how long it's gonna last, though. Is the problem?
Well, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
It's also China is worldwide most famous, or one of its most famous policies is the one-child policy. Like, they are such a populous country that they have literally legislated policies to deal with overpopulation. I feel I don't know it for sure, but I mean, it sure feels from a Western perspective as if sissy men is coding for gay people, for gay men. So wouldn't that solve their issue if they just let that reign?
No, it's more than that.
There's a lot going on here. The sissy thing, I think, is meant to mostly mean like metrosexual, like they're effeminate without specifically being gay.
They're urban elite.
Yeah, because there was there's a lot of trends in like Korean culture to have these like really effeminate men, and it's kind of like leaked into Chinese culture, and the Chinese government is upset about it because it's like not the heroic workers hammering,
It's not true Han.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the big gay, factory that Homer gets stuck in, which the Chinese party would rather you be if you're gay, at least be hunks.
The whole world's gone gay! Oh my God, what's happening now?
We work hard. We play hard.
You have to be masculine gay rather than effeminate gay if you're going to be gay. But they'd rather you not be gay at all.
It has nothing to really do with gay. It has to do with the same way Russia projects this, like, we are authoritarian, militaristic Chads. We run the world. Yeah. We turn down to nobody. Like, that's China. That's what China's trying to project, because that's what America was projecting with Trump. Like, we're all trying to project the same big dick energy.
Yeah.
But it all reveals us as tiny dick losers.
Like, China unironically is pushing for them to become giga Chads.
Yes.
Like, that's what they want. They just want Chinese men to be like incredibly hyper masculine.
I will take a Photoshop of a Chinese giga Chad. That would be great.
Yeah. I guess you put Giga Chad over. You put Giga Chad's face over like Yao Ming or something. I don't know. It has to be some gigantic dude.
Yao Ming's old as shit these days.
Well, that's why you put Giga Chad's face on him. Anyway,
those knees are bad.
Oh, thank you for the Yao Ming report.
Can't have bad knees to be a Giga Chad.
From the West, there has been for over a century now, like an idea propaganda racism around the idea that Asian men are less masculine. But
yeah, that's usually like, as you say, like an Orientalist.
Yeah,
us projecting on them. And you're saying like they're drinking the Kool-Aid?
I wonder.
They've like internalized that self-identity.
I mean, it feels very petty for that to seep into them, and like give the Chinese government like insecurity in that regard from such.
Yeah, I mean, right? Authoritarians are already very insecure. So
yeah, I don't know, but it probably is just as simple as like as you've said. Every country's trying to do that. Every major power is trying to do that because we're all extremely insecure.
That's what we think it means to project power.
So I want to briefly touch on the child birthing thing that we were talking about earlier, just because I think there's a lot of misconceptions around this, especially like I don't think the average American has any idea how that currently operates. So there was a period a few decades ago where the Chinese government started giving like serious tax incentives to urban dwellers who would only agree to have 1 or 0 children. And this was a policy, as you pointed out, to reduce China's population overall because they felt it was ballooning out of control. And this obviously generated intense anger and pushback, not only domestically, but internationally, because it was perceived as like an authoritarian move. But the problem is...
And genocidal to a degree.
Well, yeah, but here's the problem. We do the same shit. Like, tax incentives are part of our codes, too. Almost every country has some sort of eugenicist tax incentive for or against having children. The only problem is, do we want children or not? Like, are we Pope Francis yelling at you because you have a dog instead of a kid? Or are we China yelling at you because you have 2 kids instead of 1?
In America, most of the benefits are to have children, to own a home, to be married. That's where we give the incentives, not the
But
other
again,
way around.
I don't think anyone was going to prison. Like, it's been wildly exaggerated in Western media, like how much that ban in quotes was. It was tax incentives. You got significant financial incentives not to have too many children if you dwelled in the city.
Yeah, but the other problem is it fed into an existing cultural bias towards women and girls.
Well, that's
so
where
it fed into these tacit expectations for you to have a boy and raise him to be a businessman to help China.
So it led to some really shitty unintentional consequences, which is what most Chinese Communist Party policies have resulted in. First of all, the policy was actually restricted to urban areas. It was never meant for rural China. But secondly, yeah, the issue is it led to the abortion or other prevention of the birth of women because men are more valued in traditional Chinese culture, as it is in almost every traditional culture, because we're mostly male chauvinists as a species. So there's a huge number of girls and women who don't exist, who should otherwise have existed had that not been the case in China, which has resulted in a significant gap between the amount of available women and the amount of available men. Which
has its own problems,
leads directly to sissy men, because you need a certain amount of femininity, like you need a certain amount of that in a society, or else
feminine umbrella pose.
Well, right, but it starts degenerating. Like, there's a reason the Wild West sucked, and it's because it was 98% male. Like, when you have too much fucking testosterone and too much like toxic masculinity in one place, conflict. Yeah. So I actually think there's a certain logic and almost like an equilibrium that's being maintained by reducing the intensity of masculinity in an environment where there's already too many men.
But that's not what China's doing.
Ironically, China to me now is fighting against the solution to their own fuck up. Let these sissy men compensate for the fact that there's 12% more men than women.
Yeah, because they keep trying to turn the bus to the right because that's the only direction they can see.
Well, that's where things get really ridiculous. Not only has China since abandoned the tax incentives for urban dwellers to not have more than 1 children, they've actually now put in the opposite. They've put in incentives to have children like every other fucking place. So now we're going on data based on a policy that they abandoned, I think, in like the late 90s, early 2000s, even though they have the opposite policy now, and in fact are more right-wing than most countries in pushing like toxic masculine shit, giga-chad shit, anti-LGBT stuff. Like, they're as right-wing as it gets, just like every other socially reactionary part of the world.
I have to find that picture of the giant communist flag over a Gucci store.
Yeah,
that's what they're going for.
And it's amazing to me because our propaganda still acts like it's 92 or something. Like, our propaganda hasn't been updated since the end of the Cold War.
Well, as you know, Alex, as the great Francis Fukuyama told us, history has in fact ended.
Right, this is the end of history. It's the end of us paying attention, basically.
Right in the 90s. What a peak decade to end in.
The result is most people in the West think that China like shoots people in the head if they have 2 children. And it's like, no.
They've got that Vietnam
meme. If anything, they want you to have more kids now because they're realizing that an aging population of mostly men is not really good for an economy. But anyway, I just figured I'd throw some of that stuff out there.
I can't wait till China gets like the incel problem like we have.
Yeah, well, This is one of the most commonly talked about things in China, despite the fact that almost no one knows fuck all about it.
Undoubtedly, the New York Times has heavily propagandized and exaggerated the case. But yeah, if just reading the headline, it seems like they're trying to cultivate the incel problem in their own country. I mean, the most obvious thing is that freedom of expression, and especially freedom of gender expression or personal expression, breeds empathy. Empathy breeds class awareness, breeds political awareness, and thus political resistance, because China is gives just as many reasons to stand up against their government as the U.S. does for its own citizens. And this is just an attempt to curb that kind of progression towards a more generally progressive society.
I just don't understand the logistics of what they're saying China's trying to do. How do you ban sissy men? Like, what does it mean?
Yeah,
are they trying to do trans bathroom bills?
Like, I think what they're literally doing is like, stop wearing lipstick and earrings, or else we're going to cancel you on social media.
But like, how is a fucking beef eater gonna come to your house and like stop wearing dresses?
I have no idea. Your social credit's going to go down. I don't know.
Fighting all these culture wars are almost always unenforceable.
Well, that's what's so fun to me, is that this is their culture war. Like, instead of it's kind of like in America where it's like, let's talk about some obscure bullshit instead of fixing our basic like broken healthcare or environment. People. In China, it's like, instead of recognizing that we've stopped having any kind of like real socialism 30 years ago and are just a capitalist dictatorship, instead of acknowledging that and fixing that, it's like, let's talk about twinks. Like they're fighting culture war stuff so they don't have to talk about economics because they're right wing now. Well, exactly. They don't want to admit, and they don't want to admit it. Yeah.
Wait, you're telling me China is authoritarian right, not authoritarian left?
Oh my God.
I'm so shocked.
For the 12th time on this podcast.
Yeah. Capitalism got them, and then it's going to eat me.
I do think
I already ate us.
It would be fun to do a deep dive on the quote unquote social credit system and the misconceptions and the realities of it.
Yeah, find a few good articles on it. That'd be interesting.
Just watch that Black Mirror episode and you're fine.
No, I'm good.
No.
That show fucking sucks.
This season's good.
Yeah, I really didn't like Black Mirror very much. So
I'm saying for the audience. They haven't already seen it.
Let's move from history, revisionist history and revisionist present to what is essentially fantasy fiction, which is the American legal system. Well, all right. No, but hang on. Let's do one non-American legal system, actually. I got that, too.
Okay.
From The Hill, Iran calls for Trump, Pompeo to face trial for Soleimani assassination.
Oh.
Tracks.
This is why Pompeo just lost 90 pounds, so he can slip through those jail bars.
Slip through the cracks.
I mean, didn't like... There was some European country that like wanted to charge Dick Cheney and Bush.
Yes.
Like if they ever
can't go to that travel country, there, he'll get arrested.
If they were, they get arrested. Where was
I think it was like France. It was like it was a large destination.
All right, I get how they feel. Understandable. It essentially was a war crime. So.
Oh yeah, we talked about that last episode. I mean, and that would be correct. And I mean, assassinating one of the major figures in a political administration of another sovereign nation is a crime. I mean, Iran's not wrong. That is a murder.
Could you imagine if Iranian drones hit the Pentagon and killed Pompeo?
Right. Of course we'd be demanding some sort of trial of justice for that.
If that happened, we would have destroyed Iran the next day.
Right. We would have had that war that all the conservatives dream about every night.
Yeah, it's basically just their feet touch sand. So it's carte blanche for extreme murder.
Even though we probably have more fucking desert land in America than there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Iran's almost entirely mountains, actually.
And we probably have more mountains than them, too.
That's what
most Americans probably think Iran is Arab. Like, I don't know what you want.
Yeah, no, they imagine all of the Middle East as, quote-unquote, Middle East. It's just one big desert. Everyone's brown. Everyone has the same religion, which is extreme.
And they're all bad.
Extreme Islam.
And they all look like the guards from Aladdin.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I think most Americans think Arabs and the Middle East
Unfortunately,
is.
unironically, I agree. Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think there's much to this article. It's like, yeah, I kind of agree. That would be cool. It would be cool if American executives who committed war crimes were held accountable for those things.
As much as I wanted to like this article because of Yeah, they probably should.
Mhm.
Iran wanted them to go under Islamic law.
I mean, that would be funny.
Which I thought was very funny.
Bring Flynn along, or who's the other guy who people accuse of like secretly becoming Islamic?
Oh yeah.
Or some like CIA guy. There's
There's
always
a stupid
weird
guy who was
stories.
doing it was one of the guys we talked a few episodes ago who was like doing deals with Ukraine.
No, not Flynn.
Because he also was doing deals with like Erdogan.
No, but there's some other it was some like general under Obama who people accused of like secretly going to the Middle East and becoming Muslim and pledging allegiance to a different country.
I mean, it's the same people who said Obama was a secret Muslim and that his wife was a secret man. So like everyone's everything's under their fucking conspiracy theories.
I mean, look, when dipshit American kids go to Korea and like shit bubblegum on the floor and smoke weed, like they get charged under Korean laws.
Yeah.
So I kind of don't really see the difference. I mean, obviously you'd want like The Hague, you'd want an independent third party system that already has agreed upon rules of what constitutes a war crime.
Yeah. But like unironically, I'm fairly confident whoever ordered that strike could very well be charged and convicted in an impartial court because it was an assassination and they admitted they did it.
But they're both just as much fiction. They're both as unlikely to happen.
Exactly.
Of Bush going to The Hague or Trump going.
It's basically
Muslim trial in Iran.
It's revealing that you only actually face consequences as a world leader if you're not American. Because America enforces them through murder. Like, we don't actually have an international legal system that works.
Man, America has so much karma coming its way. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it won't get it in our lifetimes, but...
Oh, no, of course not. But
let's move to a much more likely to happen, but even more ridiculous court outcome from Reuters. U.S. Supreme Court conservatives lean against Biden business vaccine policy.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Sounds right to me.
They're leaning. They don't know. Maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't. They're teasing us.
It really is like sports. So there's like the Supreme Court Adam Schefter being like, we just got word that they're leaning to the right. You all do this, back to you. Like, okay. Who wrote this? What story? What paper is this in?
Reuters. It says it's supposed to be as generic as it gets.
I love when
Big Fat Nothing Burger.
When my impartial Supreme Court leans in a direction before anything has happened or been decided.
They're literally thinking of striking down a Biden thing that's like large corporations need to make sure their employees are vaccinated.
Yeah.
He's not even doing like a federal implementation. This was his outsourcing of the vaccination mandate that he should have done day one for the entire country to
put on the businesses. Yeah,
businesses can figure this out, Mac. And then the court's like, I don't think they can. What do you want? Like, who's supposed to figure this out? He can't even privatize it, you fucking asshole.
They deserve to die.
Did I just say, just die trash? Is it just die trash again?
Okay, new Photoshop. Every justice, but they're all Baby Yoda.
Yeah, no, you get on it. Every justice, Baby Yoda face, die trash. Oh, not every justice, the 6.
Not all of them.
I kind of like Sotomayor.
I'm pretty sure Sotomayor would not be in favor.
Yeah, but there's moments where Grogu's cool. So that's the
fine. It's Grogu eating fetuses for those 6.
Yeah.
And smiling for the other 3. I mean, it's just like, really, come on.
Well, that reminds me, the fucking what's it called? The story of Boba Fett's things out. I gotta watch
Boba Fett.
Yeah,
Boba Fett. What do you got in?
All right. I'm gonna play it being a judge. We all know the famous case of Citizens versus
Citizens United.
Yeah. That effectively ruled that corporations have the same rights as individuals, as citizens, as people, and individuals have the right to vaccinate themselves, which thus, of course, imparts the same immunity to the rest of their body, which in the case of a corporation is all of their employees. So does that mean that a corporation could dictate judicially legally?
Are you okay?
No, judiciously. I'm clearly not. My brain has rotted.
Having a strong
the course of this episode. I'm just saying all of the Supreme Court rulings, all of this theater is absolute farce that is just meant to create a kind of a curtain of righteousness and of certification for what individual people's interests are. I mean, we all know at this point that the Supreme Court is just, we are viewing the end point of a decades-long federalist campaign to make the U.S. government
whole again,
a conservative project,
a conservative like theocracy. Yeah. There's no actual democracy because they're all set for life.
I actually don't think the leanings here go against Citizens United. In fact, I think they confirm Citizens United, which is once again saying that the corporation get to decide who would get vaccinated or not. Biden can't
tell the corporations to do it. Right.
Vaccinated.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Now, of course, what's his dumbass? Clarence Thomas is going to be like, here's my dissenting agreement, where unless you can literally stick a needle in a corporation's arm, it's all...
I'm more convinced a corporation is a person than Clarence Thomas is a person. Because I haven't heard him say a thing in the court in 20 years.
But corporations,
I think he might be dead.
Want their people vaccinated because it's effective towards maintaining a
some of them
useful labor force.
Yeah, but Chick-fil-A doesn't because they're insane.
You can vaccinate, but you can't make me vaccinate.
Yeah, well, Chick-fil-A can suck my dick.
Yeah,
exactly.
They think they're going to be making chicken in heaven for Jesus soon. So my point is the worship we have for private businesses over government authority is done in such a way that if your corporation wants to have people vaccinated, it can do that. If your corporation doesn't want it, it can do that too. The government can't tell the corporations what to do. That's the point. And that's what you're getting to with the Federalist Society. The whole reason the Federalist Society exists is because it's like an offshoot of what the original psychos, who were not the actual founding fathers themselves, but the moneyed and business interests of the time existed and wanted a state to exist for, to protect them, not to be its own authority.
Yeah,
they love that they have the most power in America compared to the federal government.
They're the product of the oligarchical boom of the cotton gin.
So maybe I just have Yoda on the brain because you're just talking about it. Have you both seen the Star Wars prequels?
Yes,
I have not seen the third one,
but you've seen the first and second.
The first one when I was a baby. And I don't know if I've seen the second one.
There's several scenes, and this is not exclusive to them, but it was certainly emblematic in them.
Those movies are 20 fucking years old.
Where there's like a council of Jedi who are sitting, and like these are the most powerful, both individually and collective political actors in the universe. And they're sitting around like scratching their heads like, how can we handle an obvious and slow and choreographed rise of evil in our midst? What could we possibly do to stop this when we hold all political power and are individually godlike sword
and
fighters?
Coercive power?
Yeah, and we have magic powers. Like they had every possible thing.
They can literally just convince their opponents with magic.
Yeah, and they're like, "There's nothing that could have been done. How could we have stopped the rise of the Sith?" And I thought when watching that was like the dumbest shit I'd ever seen. But when you look at the U.S. Supreme Court and you look at the crises that rack the United States, it's actually worse. Like we're what 700,000 dead now from COVID, and they're like, is it legal? Yeah. Is it legal for corporations to be coerced into saving lives? Shut the fuck up. Do what needs to be done. We are dying on a scale that is unprecedented in modern history. Like I don't think the Civil War killed as many Americans at this point. What the fuck are you talking about? Whether or not this is the crisis of crises. Whether it's in the fucking like legal framework to allow or not to allow is not the question. We need a functional policy that prevents it from killing the whole population.
It's not going to happen.
I'm just saying.
Not treating it like, Alex, we're not treating it like the plague because it's not really the plague. It doesn't kill as many people as heart disease, and we just accept that as acceptable. Those are acceptable losses to America.
The foundational idiocy, premise that a group of people with enormous political influence and power, whose word is essentially fiat law, can't get together and say among themselves, like 9 people at lunch, where they get fucking lunch together, seems like a lot of death that we could prevent here. Maybe we should find a way to make that stop. No, they can't do that. They have every power to do that. Obviously, they would prefer if America was not dying, but they can't be fucked to do it.
Alex, I genuinely don't think they consider it. I don't think when Kavanaugh's getting blasted at noon and what's her face, the psycho Christian chick, are getting lunch in the cafeteria, I don't think they're going, oh, you see the death toll in the news? They're above it. They're literally above it.
It's a staggering either immorality or amorality that they have not addressed this. And in fact, when they try to address it, they make it worse.
And I think you also touch on an important tactic, which is this conflation of authoritarianism and erosion of democracy with challenging unethical and biased precedent and existing law. It's like there's this idea that if the Supreme Court, if anybody tries to overturn existing law or existing understanding of how things work, policy works, then that's authoritarianism. When in fact, it would actually be like an effort to democratize things, to save lives.
Maintaining evil institutions is authoritarianism.
Yeah, but they've effectively, in messaging wise at least, established a precedent of that being the opposite of the case. It's like, oh, it exists, so it is the right thing. And to challenge that is to be a subverter of democracy.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, we cover the court a lot on this show, not in any depth because that's incredibly boring, but in the kind of the broad strokes of what they're like. And I haven't gathered by this point, like, this is the most foundationally undemocratic part of our system, which is already an undemocratic system. And they always fuck it up. Like, they've always been fucking it up, and they're going to continue to fuck it up for the rest of our lives because they've been locked down.
They're no better than the theocratic courts that want to charge Trump in Iran.
No, if anything, those are more accurate. They're at least trying to do the right thing for the wrong reasons. These are doing the wrong thing for whatever reason.
Yeah, but Alex, day to day, the courts in Iran are not doing the right thing.
No, they're not. They're like putting tons of people to death for
right. It's the same. Reasons. This is what I'm saying. Like, they have the same rational foundation, which is religious belief or pseudo-religious ideological belief in our country.
And which foundationally is one of many reasons why you need politics, because law in the abstract tends to serve the status quo. And if your status quo is shit, then laws as written, without any respect for changing or improving or updating either the writing or interpretation of those laws, suck. You need to actually be able to do those things, or else law doesn't serve you. Why does the legal system destroy minorities and poor people rather than, white people or men or the rich? Because it's a status quo preserving institution. And if you're not willing to address or fight that in any way, then the legal system is simply not available in an equal way to most people. It's just not a solution to this. And people got to stop acting like it's a solution to everything, because it's clearly not working.
I don't think people are acting like it. I think it's just the media bodies, because they have to pretend it works that way.
Well, it's very much the kind of like MSNBC thing, which is like, we have to prosecute Trump using a different Republican, and we'll talk about that for 3 years. I wanted to leave our court section with one good one. And I mean, it's good in the sense that the good people won, even though it was a horrible event.
Okay.
From essence.com.
What? That's not a good sign.
I think it's like a African-American thing. Ahmaud Arbery's mother jabs back at defense lawyers over dirty toenails remark. This is in the context of the Ahmaud Arbery trial. All three of the people who committed the murder
he got convicted
are going to prison. Two of them without even possibility of parole.
Yeah, the dad off-duty cop and the son are fucked like forever.
Yeah, no, this was like a huge victory against a lynching,
of course, the article headline has to be about dirty toenails.
Yeah, well, that was kind of, this one is actually meant to criticize that. Like, the mother got to shit talk the really sick shit that the defense lawyers did by pushing back against their rhetoric.
I didn't follow the entirety of the case because I'm not like a sycophant like that.
Yeah.
Did the defense genuinely try and say, like, well, he's a bad guy, he had dirty toenails?
Yes. No, it's so sick. I'm gonna find you and read you the original thing, because I was flabbergasted when I saw what they had said.
Come on, man.
This is the one where they said that they couldn't have any more black ministers in attendance, right?
Yes, it's the same one that's like, why there's too many pastors.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I was so happy with the outcome for once. Why you gotta ruin it, man?
Defense attorney Laura Hogue's closing argument back in November, quote, turning Ahmaud Arbery into a victim after the choices that he made does not reflect the reality of brought Ahmaud Arbery to Satilla shores in his khaki shorts with no socks to cover his long, dirty toenails. This was in the closing arguments of the defense against this person who was lynched by their the person their client.
He was not literally lynched. He was shot to death with a gun.
But it was an extrajudicial killing of a black man for no reason. I'm saying that's a typical lynching in the United States.
Yeah, but lynch means hang.
No, right? it actually is much more generic than that. Hanging is the most common, but it doesn't have to be.
Who's the kid who got shot because the woman lied? The young kid, Emmett Till. I don't think we'd call that a lynching.
This is neither here nor there. So yeah, really staggeringly evil shit that the defense got up to in the Ahmaud Arbery case. But I actually like this one, especially because the specifics of what the mother says are great.
Oh no, you're right.
Yeah. Wanda Cooper Jones told the court, quote, "I wished he had cut and cleaned his toenails when he went out on the jog that day. I guess he would have if he'd known he'd be murdered that day." So basically acknowledging that the defense attorney could huff her shorts.
Ooh, this is kind of interesting. Remember an episode or two ago we talked about the people who tried to sue America over genocide?
Yeah.
And how they tried to use like a wide definition of genocide.
No, bear in mind, the audience probably hasn't heard that yet because I'm saving.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, by the textbook definition of lynching, there has got to be a way you could say that basically every cop shooting a black guy is extrajudicial because they explicitly did not follow the judicial system.
Yeah, if they didn't follow procedure and they murdered them for no reason.
Why are we not calling all those kills lynchings as well?
We should.
Because then
we absolutely should.
Then the lynching numbers would be going up every year, not down.
Considering how many black, especially men, but even some women, are murdered in this country by police for no clear legal justification or reason that makes any sense, yeah, those basically are lynchings.
No, the definition, it's a little different. Whatever.
The problem is that lynchings usually refers to non-state.
Yeah, public, but like a group of people, like the public.
But I don't want to devolve too much into just like the definition of lynching. What I liked about this was that not only was it an idiotic form of defense, it lost and they got owned. So for once, this bullshit entertainment thing actually worked for me. I like this article.
And I hope they burn in hell. Like, yeah, that's why was Sam Jackson not there?
This felt like Sam Jackson taking a shit on these defense attorneys. Like it was a victory for a victimized black family who got to then own them publicly, and it gets into the media. I don't know. I don't know what you could do when your son's murdered, but I guess it's the best you can hope for.
All I'll say is that, I'm a cisgender straight white guy, and if I could be murdered for the sake of my toenails, I would feel a lot less safe about my daily life.
Yeah.
Well, let's hang on, Aiden. I don't think the off-duty cop and his son were like, hang on, he's got dirty toenails. That's why he has to die. I think they're just
no, it's a complete fraudulent horseshit argument by the defense.
What's it called? Yeah. They're just like spitting on his grave. They're not. Yeah. They're not saying that's why he died.
They were literally,
and he was a scumbag too.
They were trying to say it was reasonable to expect that he was like a homeless criminal because he didn't look clean, and therefore lynching homeless people is much more reasonable. That's literally their argument. Moving right along, I think we've done enough insane evil shit for the moment. Let's shift over to my news is whatever section.
We need some more like walruses in space or something.
Yeah, we're there. From Yahoo.com Entertainment, it's going to be a good one. Reese Witherspoon's daughter, Ava Philippe, discusses her sexuality, saying, quote, "Gender is whatever."
It's like a Joe Biden answer.
End quote. Yeah.
I think it's Philippi, because wasn't she married to Ryan
Philippi? I have no idea. Probably.
I think that's Philippe, regardless.
I think it's still Philippe. But it doesn't. It's not really the question.
No, Ryan Philippi. I'm telling you.
Okay, I don't.
He's a guy who married Reese Witherspoon and had a kid.
I'm pretty sure it's Philippe, but we'll discuss it on the podcast.
It's really not important.
It's important we get this vague celebrity's name correct.
We will post a correction if we've been incorrect in the pronunciation of this person who's not related to the point.
On record.
But I do like the genders whatever.
Gender's whatever.
It's a very Gen Z, like, I'm over all this old crank shit.
Yeah, I think that as long as you're not using that to erase like people's objections to being marginalized or targeted, I think that's the correct take. Yeah, gender's
very funny. Also, because it's like, what do you think? She's like, I don't know. I don't give a shit. Whatever.
But see, this is what conservatives can't stand. They can't stand apathy towards a thing they've spent their entire lives to maintain.
Yeah.
Like, but if the answer wasn't gender is important and I am a cisgender woman and everyone else can suck shit, they will be outraged.
But that's what's hilarious to me is that older people are actually more culture war like brain fried than young people. They're the ones who are so obsessed with what the genders mean. You ask a fucking like tween these days, like, what do they care about gender? And it's like, oh, whatever. Like that's correct. Young people don't give a shit.
It's not a tween. She's 22.
I understand, but I'm saying it would be even more true if she was even younger. Like people who are growing up with the normalization of a lack of specific gender norms, they don't care. Because why should they care? She's right. It's funny, but she's right.
Because to conservatives, these are ironically the only banisters and constructs that hold up the patriarchy that they love so much.
Right.
So to see them just like melt into like sand in front of them scares them. Because they'll think, oh, what you gonna say next? I'm gonna marry my dog. Like this is where their brain actually goes. They think that without these girders, without this scaffolding to maintain American culture, the whole world just falls to chaos. That's their belief system.
This is what happens because America tolerated sissy men. And
China,
then we have this shit.
Where's the Stormfront article? Like China needs to learn a lesson from America. Yeah. Please do keep banning the sissy men.
The sissy men have scored another victory as part of the gay agenda. Gender's whatever.
You hate to see such a tragedy in our time.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's actually a much bigger tragedy, as reported on by The Verge. Stalker 2 will no longer have NFTs after fan outcry.
The video game?
Yeah. I saw this news cycle, yeah.
Unpack this one for me, lads, because how does a video game have NFTs?
There was also another one. It was like Ubisoft made like a new division of their company to make NFTs or something.
Yeah, so like,
they're all just trying to get into the grift.
In-game NFTs or some sort of like sellable merchandise NFTs surrounding the game?
You know how sometimes you buy a game, it's like, and here's the digital art book, and here's like the wallpapers you can download. I'm sure it's like that, but they're just trying to charge for it now and say that's an NFT.
Okay,
Jesus Christ.
I'm not an expert, but I believe the premise was that like you could scan yourself and put yourself in the game, and you would be an NFT.
You're the NFT.
Yeah.
They're commodifying you as the NFT.
And people were like, hey, you know, this cult classic game that people are really excited for finally having a new release? Please don't ruin it, because that fucking sucks.
Yeah.
You can already scan yourself into all the garbage wrestling games that people love. And that's fun.
Well, it makes sense. I had no idea what that even meant. I thought maybe there was in-game, and I was like, isn't this set like a post-Soviet, like Ukrainian Chernobyl house? You're like, what the fuck would an NFT look like there?
What does an NFT look like at all anyway?
Usually gross and weird.
It's all fiction.
Yeah, it's usually like crying walrus or, you know, rape ape or whatever. Like, it's not good stuff in the first place.
We gotta stop going back to that well.
Well, I can always take us back to more familiar territory.
I don't mean the NFT well. I mean the specifics.
With
not all pop art is like evil.
A brief return to American politics. I think the last one for this entire show, at least episode rather, from the Daily Beast. I'm going to try to get through this in one take. Rand Paul shivs Anthony Fauci again as Democrats deliver dumb speeches.
He stabbed Fauci?
I mean, I know I can put together what they're referring to.
I mean, that's what it literally reads as. I'm assuming it was not with a knife, though.
No. They're doing one of their million committee things where Democrats and Republicans get to ask questions. And basically, if the witness is like a conservative darling, then the conservatives just bloviate and suck his balls. And if it's a liberal darling, the liberals just suck his balls, and the conservatives send out mean questions, and vice versa. Like, we see this every time there's any of these committees that are televised, and a lot of these committees have existed around COVID, and they keep bringing Fauci in because he's like the expert on this shit. And so all it means is like the congressman from wherever, Delaware, Tim Kaine's like, thank you, Fauci, for being such a strong, happy, amazing dude. I don't know if he was actually in there, but I'm just giving it as an example. And Ted Cruz like, it appears you didn't do this. Yeah. These exist just for that reason. To needle, to prod, to undermine. It's just political theater. It's literally what we mean when we say political theater. This is the theater in which our politics happens. We have committees that are aired, and they ask questions.
Are you telling me that a guy in his 80s didn't get killed like Julius Caesar by a sitting congressperson?
No. He sat there with a shit-eating grin on his face as Rand Paul asked inane questions, and some dumbass Democrat was like, "You're the hero America deserves. You truly are the health Batman of our time." Like, yeah, it's all gobbledygook.
It's just it's such a spineless kind of transposition of violence from the people that policy decisions will actually inflict violence upon, to quantify it as Rand Paul being a dumbass and yelling at Fauci. Like that's fucking shivving. I mean, he's stuck a homemade knife into his liver. Now he's gonna die from that.
Fauci got crit.
Yeah, exactly. He got backstab ambushed. What I as opposed to like, now because there's no legislation that enforces health workers having paid time off when they're asymptomatic COVID patients. Now more people in hospitals, vulnerable people will get COVID and die. Those people aren't getting shivved, of course. It's Anthony Fauci for getting yelled at by Rand Paul in the halls of Congress. It's just a very pathetic kind of attempt to make this an exciting headline, of course, but I think it's kind of craven.
Did anyone? I mean, is the Daily Beast conservative? No. It's kind of a weird article because it says the Democrats are delivering dumb speeches and Rand Paul is heroically fucking up Fauci.
No. No one ever shivving is a heroic action. Shivving is an explicitly sinister negative.
No, but it implies it was successful, meaning like his attacks were landing as opposed to irrelevant.
It doesn't have to spell out he attempted to land the liver shot. No,
Rand Paul continues to miss blows on Fauci.
The Democrat speeches were dumb, I'm sure. I'm sure they were dumb. They're always dumb.
Or is it just like a betrayal, which is weird because Rand Paul's never been anywhere near.
Right. It's just even besides the violent language, it's just a really weird framing. This felt like an incredibly reactionary framing of this event. Because like if it was a more neutral take, it would probably be something like Democrats and Republicans exchange dumb speeches and blows in a pointless meeting. Like the idea
I think this is a progressive take. Saying the Democrats are jerking themselves off doing nothing. And Rand Paul is trying to like verbally murder Fauci unsuccessfully, like, and no one's getting anything done. Like, that's my take on it.
Really, I guess this is a very ambiguous headline.
We'd have to actually hear what he said. We have to hear the tone of what Rand Paul's questions or incisive bullshit was.
My memory is from the first paragraph of the article. It was saying Rand Paul was basically owning it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's conservative.
Rand Paul's not impossible. It's not impossible that he's correct on a singular assessment of a question. Maybe Anthony Fauci did say something dumb. He's not impervious. These are like a dumbass.
These people are both pieces of shit. Like, this should be mentioned. Fauci is like an ancient crank who mishandled COVID in the first place, but is still somehow like in charge of everything because he's like a hero for being. Because
he stood up to Trump, Alex.
What? Like, he shouldn't even be in the administration at this point. He's ancient. Get someone in there who knows the fuck they're talking about. He should have
resigned after like the first 3 months of it being
right.
Gone,
so like Rand Paul is a horrible piece of shit himself, who I wish his neighbor had been more successful.
I was gonna say it's more likely he gets killed by his neighbor than by COVID.
Yeah, but like these people both suck. like this shit, like they don't even deserve a news article on them. But if you're gonna do a news article, at least explain what the fuck they're talking about, and don't use language that's like he's Julius Caesar. I
like the alliteration at the end though. It's funny.
Yeah, Dems deliver dumb speeches. No, I won't eat green eggs and ham. All right.
It sounds like a 25-year-old was really upset that they got forced to watch this garbage and just wrote like a rant.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be our podcast if we didn't come back to religion for some reason. In our closing segment, God and Friends, once again. You heard about this guy, Pope Francis?
Oh, come on. I'm tired of this fucker. There's like 8,000 religions. Can we cover something else other than Catholicism?
The news can't, so I can't.
It's your news is now self-selecting for Catholic stories.
No, I actually use a thing that prevents
Blast your cache.
It doesn't track my preference. All right. Well, you're getting it anyway because that's what I got prepared. NBC News, Pope Francis, vaccinating against COVID is a moral obligation.
All right, let's see what all the Christians have to say about this.
In his bipolar shifting between fascist and leftist rhetoric.
Isn't leftist.
He's now said what seems like just a reasonable take. Get vaccinated, you idiots.
It's not fucking leftist to accept the evidence of science.
I know.
Oh my God. Well, reality is becoming politicized. Reality is now communist instead of liberal, according to Stephen Colbert. Like, what is happening?
I mean, science is intrinsically communist.
He is releasing a cohesive belief system, though, because since it is immoral to own pets instead of kids, your kids will die if you don't get vaccinated. So now to complete the first edict of bearing children, producing children, now to keep them alive, you must be vaccinated. I mean, I appreciate the continuity at the very least.
Maybe Ted Farrow was right.
Oh,
the villain from Horizon Zero Dawn.
I haven't played this game. What are you talking about?
I have.
It's not for you.
Don't remember the name.
Maybe everything just should die.
You're in an interesting place today. Well, Pope Francis wasn't done. He's been busy. In his other statement from independent.co.uk, Pope Francis warns against cancel culture.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Just when you thought you were on his side.
Yeah, he along with Aaron Rodgers, consulted his friend Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
God.
Subhead, the Pope said it was a form of ideological colonization that suffocates freedom of expression.
Even though he is the Pope because of cancel culture, by the way. Benedict got fucking canceled. I don't care what you tell me.
By God.
That motherfucker got canceled for covering up child rape.
For the pedophilic rape capital of Italy, I understand why he might be worried about cancel culture.
Man, it's gonna come out in it's 10 years that he raped some kids too, right?
I don't
Francis,
I doubt it. But
the only people who rail against cancel culture are rapists.
I think this is part of his schizophrenic please everyone with wildly different political speeches.
No, he read that other insane article we did. Well, the left got voting rights, so the right's got to get guns and abortion.
Exactly. That's exactly what he's like.
I have to give out red meat. I have to give out blue meat.
We have to adjust.
Oh, I have to cover for neo-Nazis if I cover for common sense.
Fuck this dipshit.
It's definitely not offensive to the majority of the human world, which was colonized viciously by imperialist powers, to use the idea of colonization.
Isn't he culturally appropriating colonization?
I know, it's really good. Was he reading fucking Friends Fanon, and he's like, instead of killing the resistor, I need to end cancel culture. I don't know. This one was wild to me. I mean, this is an institution which historically launched a thing called the Inquisition, which would hunt down people with differing political or religious views and torture them and sometimes kill them.
No. That's not freedom of expression. That's blasphemy.
Oh, okay.
That's
fine then.
The East India Trading Company was literally an agent of cancel culture.
Exactly. I don't think that there's an institution that has survived into the modern world with a greater history of repressing freedom of thought and expression than the Catholic Church.
Galileo canceled.
Right.
Copernicus canceled.
40,000 Albigensians canceled from life. Jews throughout most of history canceled.
Huguenots canceled.
I mean, they canceled every motherfucker they could for as long as they could until they lost. What, something like 100,000, 200,000 Germans in the 40 Years' War or whatever it was? Or 30 Years' War. There was some horrific stat there that I probably botched. But, I mean, the Catholic Church has not only a death toll, but an obvious anti-intellectual, anti-freedom of speech toll.
Alex,
it's staggering.
When you were watching Black Mirror with us, did you get up to the episode with John Hamm?
Yeah.
With the social media thing where you can literally blank people out of your line of sight?
Yeah, I saw that.
That's what I want to do with Pope Francis.
You get the filter.
If his face shows up on a website, it just needs a blur. Mm-hmm. He's it's a red outline. Can't hear from this motherfucker ever again. He's such a loser. Oh my God.
I think that might be the most accurate, encapsulation of him as a person. Yeah. He's a big fat loser. Yeah, it's just wild. It's just
shit.
There's so much brain rot across the entire world over quote unquote cancel culture. It's been so effectively militarized.
We've something worse. We have a cancer culture.
Well,
it's our entire life.
Largely online contingents of people.
I need the codes.
Sometimes
I must destroy Zion.
Trying to hold people accountable. That's the same as colonization.
Well, I think I'll cut to one good takeaway.
There hasn't been one genuine good story in this whole episode.
Well, there's been a few. From CNBC.com, millennials lead shift away from organized religion as pandemic tests Americans' faith.
I saw this one and I couldn't make sense of it, so I moved on.
Yeah. Well, now you got fucked because you were right back at it.
2 steps back.
So, even besides the fact that I think this is a broadly good thing that is happening,
it's testing our faith.
That's why I thought it was good. I mean, obviously the framing of the article isn't, but the other part of this I thought was interesting is this article's assertion is that the pandemic, which again has been about 2 years, is the reason why millennials are losing their faith, even though most millennials are like 30 or older.
That's funny. Yeah, well, because all the myths that religious people have about atheists is like, oh, you're just an atheist because you're mad at God. You're mad he sent the plague down.
Yeah.
God.
We finally discovered the answer to an existing trend in this new thing that's just happened.
Yeah. A trend that we've noticed for like 40 years. It's because of the last 2 years. It's like people who think that Trump was the first bad Republican.
Yeah.
It's just like, do you know what, like, forget history. Do you know what your own lifetime's events have been so far?
Oh, okay.
I don't think they do.
I've got I'm combining 2 articles into a Reese's peanut butter cup. And literally, Reese Witherspoon's daughter, Ava Philippi,
right,
has been leading a millennial shift away from gender identity as pandemic tests Americans' gender norms.
Oh, I thought you were going to just say, Ava says religion is whatever.
No, what I'm saying is it's the same idea that, like, yes, millennials are less religious, they're less imbued by these identities, and so are the generations below us. Like, they just don't care. We don't hold on to these like they're holy institutions because they're not. We're not as brainwashed as we used to be.
And that's bad, apparently.
Like, our parents' brainwash didn't take as well because our parents were losers.
All right.
Our generational parents. Not our individual parents. Our parents are great. Each generation, since capital has let everyone just become fat cat losers, have just gotten like lazier and lazier at the job of maintaining their evil institutions. So now they're all coming to rot and like melt and Ponzi scheme out, and the younger people aren't buying it as much.
Yeah, probably because they didn't get any of the cut.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were just at a slightly more ideal or accessible, stage of late stage capitalism.
Well, I want to end us on a cheery note, so I'm going to talk about a true hero from The Guardian. You're close. Landmine hunting hero Rat dies in Cambodia after stellar career.
The end. The implications. He got blown the fuck up.
It really feel like that.
We need the Hurt Locker cross Ratatouille.
Yeah, like no, we need like a statue of like statue of the unknown rat or something like. Because like there's no body to put in the coffin.
And this is why
a rat coffin.
A pro rodent podcast.
Yeah.
Listen, snitches and rats, we don't support them, but landmine hunting rats have our backing.
Turns out Skaven not evil after all. They've been trying to help us.
What's the name of that stupid dog from Call of Duty?
I don't know.
I have no fucking
idea. What I'm talking. Call of Duty.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Riley? Yeah. We have like Ratty here.
I got a subhead. You want to hear this?
Yes.
Magawa, a giant African pouched rat, was awarded a gold medal for heroism for clearing ordnance from 42 football pitches worth of land.
Is that 43rd one that got?
That's awesome.
He got to 43, and it's like, all right, I'm out.
So he's got a tiny little casket, and they put the gold medal on top of it?
Yeah. Truly, he was the best of us.
Oh, here's even better. Guess whose landmines those were?
I couldn't
Probably
guess.
ours. It's Cambodia.
Yeah, probably. There's a real chance.
Oh my god.
This episode is dedicated to Magawa.
May he rest in peace forever. Do they need to do the little funeral dance with his casket?
Oh, yeah. That would be great. I have to do like a revised.
Did you see
I have
that
to do a
news
revised
story?
outro with that sound.
Did you see that news story with some soccer player died, and so they they put him in his coffin and they laid him next to the goal, and one of his teammates kicked the ball off the coffin into the goal.
Oh my god!
Like he always wanted to get the final score. It's really fucked.
That has the same energy as RBG's personal trainer doing push-ups next to a casket.
Yeah. This is a big fucking rat.
Yeah, he's a giant pouched rat.
It needs room for that pouch.
All I'm saying is America and whoever, I guess Cambodia, pour one out for a real one. this rat had it all. 8 years of landmine.
So how did he do? He just could sniff them out. He could like smell the chemicals degrading, and
he was trained. He was trained by some specialist in this exact thing. Yeah. I guess he had like some sort of probably Pavlovian training to like under a certain smell to get an indication or something.
He should have been called Jeremy Ratter.
Oh Jesus!
Because Jeremy Renner plays the guy in Hurt Locker.
No, I got it. It wasn't bad. It's just very confusing.
And he's the guy in 28 weeks later who saves the family and then dies.
Yeah, that was a horrible scene. He's murdered. He's flamethrowered in a car.
Yeah.
Spoilers. All right. Well, this has been a real one. Just like the rat, unlike all of our articles about history, and I think we will catch you next time.
I'm out.
This has been the news. See you next time.
I'm tired of this shit.
Bye.